With Green Bay Packers, OTAs, and minicamp now officially in the books, we have a long period to wait until the start of training camp, 41 days to be exact from today. But that doesn't mean we didn't learn a ton from Packers, OTAs, and minicamp. So in today's show, brought to you by PrizePicks, we're going to go over the 5 biggest things and takeaways we learned from Packers, OTAs, and minicamps to start off this offseason. Quickly, do me a favor and go down and click that subscribe button if you, in fact, want to stay in the loop with everything Green Bay Packers this offseason. Again, we have about 41 days until training camp, but there'll still be plenty of Packers content coming out on this channel. And then, of course, once we do get into training camp, you won't want to miss out on all the update videos, highlight videos we release every single day of practice that's open to the media, including exclusive 11v11 and 1v1 highlight clip. So if that sort of thing does sound interesting to you, do me a favor, take a second out of your day, click that subscribe button. It's absolutely free to do. You won't regret it because you'll stay up to date with everything Green Bay Packers. All right, so let's dive right down into it. We're going to be going over the 5 biggest takeaways from Packers OTAs and minicamp that started in late May. Now, these are in no particular order, but to me, these are the 5 biggest takeaways from the beginning portion of the offseason for the Green Bay Packers. Number 1, I have rookie involvement. Of course, we got to start by talking about all the rookies as they just started to practice with the Green Bay Packers for the first time. Started with rookie minicamp, then into OTAs, then mandatory minicamp, and they even finished off another section of OTAs this week, just the rookies. And this year, more than ever, that I can recall in years past, there's been more early rookie involvement. And what I mean by that is we're starting to see rookies get more involved with first-team reps early on. The traditional way for the Green Bay Packers is draft and develop, and that's all great. But this year, it seems like the Packers and Brian Gutekunst really drafted for positions of need to fill holes on this roster that were glaring. And we're already starting to see that that is the fact because these rookies, even some drafted in the middle rounds, in the 5th round, are starting to see some reps with the first team. Now, albeit this is just OTAs and minicamp, none of these practices were padded. Of course, heading into training camp, we'll see if that continues, if some of these rookies continue to see first-team reps and how that goes. But it's been a great start for a lot of these rookies. And I'll start off with Jager Burton, who's been a huge talking point of the Packers rookie class through OTAs and minicamp because he's seen so many reps with the first team. Now, this is also due to injuries because Aaron Banks hasn't practiced in a couple weeks. I think he practiced the first week of OTAs and then hadn't practiced after that point. So there was a open spot at one of the guard spots for Jager Burton to take snaps at. But he's taken snaps at left guard, right guard. He's even taken snaps at center where I see him at his true position. But early on in his NFL career, he may start to see snaps. His pathway to see snaps in the regular season might just be at guard because if Sean Ryan steps up into that center role, the role that the Packers paid him to be, that 3-year, $33 million contract, there could be some injuries. There could be some poor play at either guard spot, whether Aaron Banks continues to endure some injuries, which I hope that doesn't happen, or Anthony Belton has poor play at right guard, or say someone like Zach Tom or Jordan Morgan goes down for a brief period and someone like Belton has to kick out to tackle. Well, now you have an open hole at that right guard spot, and Jager Burton already taking reps at that position. And the Packers and Matt LaFleur, they've been speaking extremely high of him, and it seems like he's taking this head on, and that's super, super impressive for a 5th-round rookie. Then you also have other rookies like Chris McClellan, who's starting to see snaps with the first team at the nose tackle position, a position that, in my opinion, is wide open. Yes, Javon Hargrave will see some early down snaps at nose, but right now I feel like that is a position that is wide open. You could have Chris McClellan there. You could have some Javon Hargrave. You could have Nazir Stackhouse. You could even have some Warren Brinson. He's a little versatile as well. So right now it's wide open, and it's nice to see their 3rd-round pick, Chris McClellan, who they traded up for, already seeing some snaps in a role that could make him a starter as early as week 1. Then you have the likes of Brandon Cisse and Dennis Sutton, their 2nd-round pick and 4th-round pick, respectively. It seems like the cornerback room is also wide open. It has to be earned. It's not given. It's not just going to be, it's Keyshawn Nixon and Carrington Valentine because those were the starters last year. If Keyshawn Nixon does decide to hold out in training camp, then look out because someone like Brandon Cisse or Benjamin St-Juste might fully take that opportunity to get a ton of first-team reps and earn that position. We'll have to see what happens, but it seems like under new defensive coordinator Jonathan Gannon, right now, between the four cornerbacks and Keyshawn Nixon, the four main cornerbacks and Nixon, St. Juste, Valentine, and Cisse, it's completely wide open for boundary cornerback. So it's nice to see that as well. And Cisse is going to get every opportunity. And then deny Dennis Sutton with Micah Parsons missing at least the first 5 weeks and the Packers kind of lacking depth at the edge rushing position. Deny Dennis Sutton could also see snaps as early as week 1. And to me, that was a complete steal in the 4th round. So I'd love to see him get on the field. Overall, there's just been more rookie involvement than I can remember in years past, as early as OTAs and mandatory minicamp, which can be a good thing, but it can also be a bad thing. If these rookies don't play up to what you expect and they're at starting positions, that could definitely hurt your football team. But if you have guys step up, new fresh blood in the building, say at the cornerback position that struggled last year, that can really help your team too and give it a ton of potential and a ton of upside. Before we dive into the second biggest takeaway from Packers OTAs and minicamp, let me know, do you think the Packers have a good shot to win the NFC North this season? Over on PrizePicks, today's video sponsor, you can actually select yes or no if the Packers can win the NFC North. And right now, they actually dropped to 3rd. The past few times I've talked about this pick on PrizePicks, they've been 2nd. But weirdly enough, Detroit still remains a decent bit ahead at the first best odds, a 2.7 multiplier to win the NFC North. Then you have the Chicago Bears at a 3.12 multiplier to win the North. And then the Green Bay Packers slightly behind at a 3.33 multiplier. I think this is the year the Packers take back the North. I think the NFC North is the best division in football, but I think the Packers can be the best team in that division. And I really like these odds here for the Green Bay Packers. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. Go check out PrizePicks by clicking the link in the description below. Make sure to use code HMA when signing up. It'll net you $50 in lineups when you make a $5 play instantly. Remember to always play responsibly, but if you do, go check out PrizePicks. So for number 2, for the biggest takeaways and updates from Packers OTAs and minicamp, I have the running back room taking shape. So Josh Jacobs returned to practice after that ongoing legal situation. Now, this is still ongoing, so we'll see how that goes through the rest of June into July, into training camp. Things could definitely change before the Packers start training camp, but as of right now, the running back room is definitely taking shape, and that's because Marshawn Lloyd has been practicing in full. And I want to knock on wood here because obviously in years past, we get hype on Marshawn Lloyd. Every practice we've seen him in has been non-padded, really non-contact. So let's wait and see when the contact happens, when the pads come on. But it looks very, very promising for Marshawn Lloyd. And I'm kind of creating the comparison here from when we saw Christian Watson go away and get that medical study done on him. Well, we got reports that Marshawn Lloyd did the same exact thing. He spent months this offseason working with Dr. John Meyer, and he provided insight on his work with Marshawn Lloyd. Said he began with a comprehensive evaluation of Lloyd's lower body range of motion and his lower body and lumbopelvic strength. Lumbopelvic refers to the connection of the lower spine and pelvis. Lloyd did 2-leg squatting, single leg squatting, jumping, running, cutting, and deceleration exercises in a 3-dimensional motion capture lab that identified where Lloyd was placing stress during the activities. Meyer found Lloyd was overcompensating at his ankle and hip, in part due to residual deficits in his knee from a 2020 ACL tear he suffered while playing for South Carolina. He also had less quad strength stemming from that injury 6 years ago, too. So again, similarly to what we saw Christian Watson do a couple years ago, and he's been good in terms of the lower leg soft tissue injuries ever since, it seems like Marshawn Lloyd is taking that same course, and it's already paying dividends. He looks great out there in OTAs and minicamp, and right now he is slated to be that running back number 2 behind Josh Jacobs. The Packers let Emmanuel Wilson walk in free agency. He would have been clear-cut number 2 running back in this room. The Packers gave Chris Brooks an extension. He's more of that third down running back, but maybe he could also step up into that running back number 2 role. And then you kind of have a question of who earns that running back number 4 role. If it's either Brooks or Lloyd at 2 or 3, who earns the 4th running back role if the Packers do intend to keep 4 running backs between Pierre Strong, Damian Martinez, or even someone like Jaden Nixon? It's going to be very interesting to look out for it to start the training camp this offseason. The third biggest takeaway from OTAs and minicamp to me is that the new defensive scheme under new defensive coordinator Jonathan Gannon is already meshing really well. Multiple Packers starting key defenders have already been talking about Jonathan Gannon and how they've already started to like this scheme a lot. Xavier McKinney said, I think we all this far enjoyed playing in this scheme. I think it's going to show the people watching and for us, guys that can play in different spots and really showcase their skills. Obviously, we got a lot of players on the defensive side, ball guys, people that can change a game. I think this scheme is perfect for our personnel. And then also Javon Bullard talked on Jonathan Gannon and said it's a lot of stuff going in. Sometimes it's 3 high, it's 2 high. Sometimes guys showing on in the line of scrimmage. You got guys showing at the heels of the D-line. The disguise is crazy right now. So although, of course, with that comes a big learning curve and changed verbiage that the Packers will definitely have to really hone in on during training camp, it seems like the players are already taking a huge liking to how Jonathan Gannon is running things here in Green Bay thus far. And I'm also very interested to see the type of scheme and disguises and play calls and pressure packages and coverages that Jonathan Gannon ends up using and putting his players in the best position to succeed, which is the most important thing to do as a defensive coordinator to start this 2026 season. The fourth takeaway from Packers OTAs and minicamp I have is that the edge room will need to step up. Now, that was clear the moment Micah Parsons went down with that ACL tear, that to end the season and then into 2026, that other players in that edge room were gonna have to step up. And now, more than ever, that's going to be the case because we got the news that Micah Parsons will almost definitely be out the first 4 weeks of the NFL season, will start the year on the PUP, and could even miss more than the first 5 weeks. It might not just be, okay, he misses the first 4 weeks on PUP, he comes back week 5 against the Bears, and all is great and well. He may actually miss into the middle of October, maybe late October, and maybe more so come back week 7. That could definitely happen. And with the Packers trading away Rashawn Gary and JJ Enagbare going to the New York Jets, that's over 1,200 snaps lost. That's just Gary and Enagbare from 2025. So other players on this roster in this edge room are going to have to step up in the first 5 to 7 weeks for this Packers defense to survive. And that includes the likes of Lucas Van Ness, who in my opinion, I know a lot of people consider him a bust. I think he was having a really, really good season last year before injuring his foot. And he never really caught back on with that foot injury to end the season. So he needs to pick up at that point this season to start the season because he is going to be edge rusher number 1. That's where he's slated to be right now. And outside of that, you have guys like Barron Sorrell, who showed plenty of flashes in 2025, just didn't see the snap share due to Rashawn Gary and JJ Enagbare. He could very well rise up into that edge rusher number 2 spot. Packers edge rushers see around 60 to 65% of snaps during a game if you're not named Micah Parsons. So there's going to be a heavy rotation, and that includes a guy like Dennis Sutton, we talked about earlier in this video, a rookie in the 4th round that could see significant snaps week 1. And then you also have Brenton Cox Jr., who has definitely shown flashes over his NFL career so far in Green Bay. He's another player that's going to have to step up. You have Colin Oliver, which we'll talk about him here in a second, isn't looking the best in regards to getting on the field thus far in his NFL career. But the other guys, they're going to have to step up, plain and simple, for this defense to work. That's Lucas Van Ness, Barron Sorrell, Brenton Cox Jr., denied Dennis Sutton, at least until Micah Parsons comes back. The final and 5th biggest update we have from Packers OTAs and minicamp are, simply put, the injury updates. We already talked about a couple of them. We talked about Micah Parsons being out until week 5 at the earliest, maybe even more. That was a huge update. Not too surprising, but you did kind of have that in the back of your mind, like maybe he could return sooner than week 5. Maybe they don't have to place him on the PUP. But it seems like a 99% chance that the Packers will be placing him on the PUP. He won't obviously be practicing at all in training camp, and he may even miss more than the first 5 weeks. We'll see what happens, but that's very unfortunate. But hopefully he can return, say, week 5, week 6, and he has no other lingering issues in regards to that ACL. Then we got some huge updates on Tucker Kraft throughout OTAs and minicamp, that he's on track to come back week 1. He said it himself. I want to be out there week 1 and not on a pitch count. I plan to be out there and getting all the rust knocked off and practicing and getting up to speed during training camp. So it seems like Tucker Kraft at some point during training camp will also be back practicing. which is obviously huge for this Packers offense. If you just simply look at the EPA per play statistic with Tucker Kraft on and off the field from 2025, it is vastly different for the Packers offense. We have Colin Oliver, who's still out. We just talked about him in number 4 of today's video. He missed most of camp last year, and he missed, I think, all of OTAs and minicamp this year. So a position of need, like we mentioned with the edge rusher room, with Micah Parsons out, Gary gone, Enigbari gone. You know, it's unfortunate that Colin Oliver isn't out on the practice field trying to earn some reps, earn some snaps for the 2026 season, because with all these injuries and snaps lost, if he's out there practicing and hopefully gets back during training camp, he could see some snaps early on in this season. But thus far, hasn't practiced at all, and it's not looking good so far. The report is that Zach Tom hopes to be a full go by the start of training camp. He's, of course, recovering from that pretty brutal torn patella tendon injury. That's a hard one to come back from. So not only are we waiting to see Zach Tom return to practice, but at what level when he does return to practice? That is a very hard injury to overcome. So that's definitely something to monitor. Of course, the news is good thus far that he is hopeful to return at the start of training camp, but it's going to be something huge to monitor during training camp when he does return. Wyatt, who didn't practice during OTAs and minicamp, hopefully he's able to return at the start of training camp or at some point in training camp. The Packers definitely need him on the defensive line. And then we already talked about it, but Marshawn Lloyd, a player that has just been consistently injured, is the one player that's not injured on this list and has been practicing very, very well. I'll tamper my expectations and I'll wait until training camp. I'll wait until preseason, but thus far it looks good. So those are the 5 biggest takeaways and updates I have from Green Bay Packers, OTAs, and minicamp. Again, we have 41 days to wait until the start of training camp, but I feel like that time will fly by and we'll be at the start of training camp sooner than we know it. Again, be on the lookout for all the other Packers content from now to then, updates, news, analysis, breakdowns, everything in between. And of course, when training camp does come around, tons of content can be released on this channel. So go and click subscribe. But I appreciate you guys for coming by to the channel. I'll catch you on the next one. And as always, go Pack Go.